TF2's aesthetics and designs have been praised to oblivion from its inception, being referenced and described further from an artistic and functional perspective in multiple great videos. Yet, for this video I want to go more in depth about their choices specifically, as it's interesting to see how artists and programmers at Valve made the most out of what was at the time cutting-edge computer graphic research. More specifically, why did they choose this style? Why were these choices made? And how does the light processing reflect the world they have created? So, for context, during the development of TF2, the entire team finally had the time to lay down the design and tone of the world we'll all be playing in. They laid out general design principles consisting of simple shapes, both in the environment and on the characters, with a shape motif distinct, with the red team being angular shapes and blue team being orthogonal shapes, inspired by Leyendecker's works. Selective color placement, keeping brighter, eye-catching colors to important elements of the game, like control points, signage, and the mercenaries, while darker, less saturated colors were used for everything else, to intuitively guide the players towards important game information. And lastly, a non-photorealistic rendering style, characterized by impressionistic textures made to resemble Miyazaki's Spirited Away world, a painted world where brushstrokes would be seen from a 3D perspective, as if it was a world where everything in it was indeed painted on. All these design choices were intentionally built in a reality where teleporters, rocket jumps, surreal weaponry, and blowing up opponents are all common, contextualizing everything to be a surreal, impressionistic, and exaggerated world. The final result is a well-defined hierarchy of attention based on selective color and shape usage. To identify teams, we have color. To identify the environment and the classes, we have silhouettes, proportions, and weapon designs. And to identify areas of interest, we have gradients that escalate in saturation and brightness that guide us to a focus point. All these principles are ones I use myself for my works and characters. I defined many good art practices through the visual philosophy of Team Fortress 2, and it's crazy how effective it is for each one of my designs. In light of this world, the TF2 team planned to look into the state-of-the-art non-photorealistic rendering style techniques of 2007, finding two vital components that would each define TF2's bright days: Amy Gooch and Adam Lake's works. Gooch developed an alternative approach to lighting, making use of hue to convey the shape of things instead of just brightness, basically using different colors for shading, while Lake developed a flat shading technique used for painting cells, giving less information and achieving the style we all associate with games like The Wind Waker, that I still got to play. In addition, in 2007, Pascal Barla extended this methodology to use a more complex lookup texture that allowed the definition of extra details and rim lighting techniques. Let's look into it directly now, shall we? This monolith of an equation determines how everything we just discussed about looks. Let's make it understandable, why not? The equation is broken in two parts, one that is dependent on where you look at it and one that is independent from it. The independent part is quite simple once broken down. But before that, I need to quickly define what a vector is. You can think of a vector as a way to visualize a direction as well as the amount. The simplest example of this is movement. If a character moves from point A to point B, we can represent that action as a vector that follows the direction of the character and the amount the character moved. Vectors are extremely versatile as they give us important information about 3D space and the object within it, and as you guessed, they're the backbone of how we compute lighting in video games. In fact, the first thing we're looking at is a vector. For a given surface, we take the normal vector, aka the direction perpendicular to the surface that we call n of I, as per normal, colored green. Then we take the vector that represents the direction of the light source L of I, colored yellow. With a dot product operation between them, we're able to get back a number that tells us the strength of the light onto that surface within a scale, which is something we can compute for every single polygon of the characters. This way, we're able to construct the basis of directional light. With this value now on our hands, we add specific modifiers into it designed to adjust how sharp and deep the darkness is allowed to go, as we want to avoid characters becoming pitch black. Plus, with this, we're able to also enable the softer, non-harsh shadows we experience in-game. Immediately after, we make use of Lake's method, a function that gives the cast shadows a more net-tight cut shadow line, mimic a more cel-shaded look. These results come from Leyendecker's lighting style. Lastly, we add the pre-computed ambient bounce light to the character. This gives them a slightly colored shade to ground them in the environment. As for this section of the video, we're gonna see how the game processes view-dependent light. So of course, this means that the results will change based on where you stand. The simplest visual example to understand how light can change based on where you look is to imagine yourself equipped with a laser pointer and moving while looking at something. The laser will shift position based on where you stand, and therefore a computation is needed to determine where the dot should appear. The first highlights we care about are the ones that are casted upon objects from local lights. These reflections move as the camera moves and are tailored to represent specific material components, giving distinct shyness to varying surfaces. We then add the first layer of rim lighting. These are broad and soft light areas to create a consistent, illustrative outline. With two kinds of rim lighting computed, we use the max operation so that we always take the brightest option, so that we end up with what is effectively a combination of the two methods. Nothing is lost. To this, we add the constant weight of the material K and the color reflected C for every L light in the scene. Up next, we have the additive term. This section is responsible for handling the omnipresent rim lighting that make the character stand out even in pure darkness, which is another element inspired by Leyendecker. The light is defined so that it always comes from above the mercenaries, which is where we expect light to come from. This is done so the character's silhouette remains omnipresent and identifiable at all times. And lastly, we add the base texture of the character and we're done. That's everything. Putting all together, we get TF2's distinct and unique take on visual style. The components we saw are quite numerous and hard to comprehend, but viewing them in action hopefully made them clearer. I've made a few recaps to bundle everything together and to help you visualize everything again. And maybe, just maybe, they can make a good reference for going back and understanding. Plus, I've also made a simple rundown list of everything we discussed with color coding so that it's easier to have a visual recap immediate that can be read as many times as wanted.
And now let's play our favorite game.
Did you find the game yet?
What?